Hello, grappling fans. Welcome back. The second edition here of the Grappling Bulletin podcast. Myself, Howell Teague, joined by Chase Smith. Chase, man, it was a pretty packed weekend of jiu-jitsu. A lot of fun, right?
A lot of fun this weekend, absolutely. We're talking about BJJ Stars. Phenomenal event. Really great to have it back on Flow. And man, just a night full of matches. Like I said going in, there was no fat. Every single match delivered, and I can't think of a single bad match. It was a great time.
Yeah, you know, the event, I think, got a lot of attention, right? For a number of reasons. Number one, it's been a while since we've had a high-level gi super fight event or gi tournament, right? Because, of course, with the restrictions on travel and stuff, some of the best athletes in the world are unable to go to the events that are the most active. So BJJ Stars is pretty much it in Brazil at the moment. It's the pretty much the best platform you can hope to compete on if you are a high-level black belt. And, well, it was only high-level black belts in that lineup, right?
I mean, yeah, there were 4 world champs in the 8-man bracket. You can't really get more stacked than that. And, I mean, you guys already know the results, so this won't spoil anything. But there were some upsets. And, it really delivered a kind of wild ride for viewers and for us. And I couldn't have been happier. But, yeah, shout out to BJJ Stars for putting together a phenomenal card. The production is AAA. I mean, you don't get nicer than that.
And shout out to Felipe Pena, because that guy...
the man of the hour.
Wow. I said this in the kind of the morning recap. You know, every Monday morning we post the Grappling Bulletin article, right? And, of course, this being the show, it allows us to talk a little bit more about the subjects, you know, the biggest stories come out of the weekend. And there was no bigger story than Felipe Pena. You know, this guy just cruised to victory at BJJ Stars in the Heavyweight Grand Prix. And this, technically, it was called heavyweight, but it was not purely heavyweight. It was a kind of a mix between heavy and super heavy. And Pena is definitely one of the lighter competitors in the bracket, but he was also one of the favorites. And basically, him and Nicholas Marigali, if you looked at the odds, they were both very, very highly ranked. Marigali was slightly higher ahead in terms of the odds. He was slightly more of a favorite. But Pena, well, I mean, he is a 2-time world champion. And, you know, of course, he's going to be considered one of the favorites. But he didn't struggle, did he?
No, and we're seeing some highlights run here. This is his opening match with Luis Panza. And credit to Panza. Panza brought some really interesting attacks. Didn't necessarily have Pena in any serious danger, but made the match very exciting. And this back attack was absolutely a thing of beauty. But Pena didn't finish it.
Yeah, this was the moment. This was the downfall, wasn't it? This was when Felipe Pena really sealed the deal in this match. Up until then, Panza had been playing a very crafty game and had kind of, you know, Felipe in some difficult positions. But no, Felipe, he found the guillotine in that transition, and he just, that was it. Beautiful finish from the top, right?
Right, and thinking back when we were watching this live, we thought for a moment that Panza might have freed his neck a little bit, but Felipe made that grip adjustment and, man, got maybe the sub of the night. Here he is in his second match with rising talent Eric Muniz. Muniz put up a great match, I would say, here.
Oh, yeah, this was extremely close, actually. If you look at the points as well, you know, this one that it was 2-2, but Pena won it 3-1 on advantages. Just goes to show how close the match was. It was very technical. And look at that. The size of Muniz as well.
Watch
as
this.
Issue.
Actually, I added this in a little bit of slow motion here. Watch Pena's right leg on the sweep. The detail that he uses to off balance and capture the leg just a little bit.
Ooh.
That is so sneaky. It really helped him secure that sweep because Muniz didn't have that leg to base out on. He still did his best there, going up on one arm and looking like a super skyscraper or something. But
man, Pena's X-guard and his just entire leg fighting game is just unreal. Now, this position, I commented on it when we were doing the commentary, and I kind of said it looks a little bit like a bear trap. And then somebody reminded me that Pena actually calls it the preg trap. The preguiça trap. And he uses it very, very effectively. It enables him to score what looks like a pretty easy sweep from that position. It's almost like a reverse bear trap. It's very, very clever. But that is Felipe Pena in a nutshell, right? Very, very clever. That match right here, that's Gutenberg Pereira.
This is the final, yes.
Yeah, this is the final. And Gutenberg, well, we'll talk about him in a second. He had an amazing performance too. But Pena, it's interesting. You see this moment kind of here that anytime somebody tries to invert and go in underneath Pena, he's just so good at shutting that down. You will not win that battle with Pena, right?
No. And even in that last exchange there where he extracts himself from the preg trap. He gets his leg out of danger. You know, when he sweeps from 50-50, he's really good at extracting himself from 50-50. He never really has an equal playing field with his opponent. He's always one step ahead, and that's why it looks so easy, because he's not really engaging in the same level of battles a lot of guys have to do.
Something very interesting as well, shortly after the event, Felipe Pena, he posted on his Instagram that just 15 days out from the event, he had a really bad case of bursitis in his knee that got infected.
Ouch.
I've had that. It's awful. Number one, your knee swells up to like, it's just huge. Number two, it's very, very painful.
Yeah, that stuff hurts.
You can't kneel on it. And number three, if it's infected bursitis, you actually get like basically low-grade flu symptoms. You get a little bit of fever, you get achy, it just makes you feel shitty. So the fact that he had this leading up to this tournament, didn't pull out, powered through, and came out and still managed to win in that fashion, I think just reminds everybody exactly how good Felipe Pena is.
Wow, yeah, I didn't see that post. That's pretty amazing. And we were talking about this before the event, how we didn't see much of Felipe Pena last year for obvious reasons, but still that raises some questions. You know, what's his cardio going to be like? How ready will he actually be? Well, shows that he's extremely well prepared despite a lot of setbacks and a regular season, a regular training. So, yeah.
I think it reminds everybody, number one, Pena is absolutely one of the best in the world, right? And number two, just because he hasn't been active, don't count him out.
No,
because,
definitely not.
Yeah, you put him in against these guys, a stacked field of killers. You have Panzer, the crafty veteran. You have Muniz, the really, really hot up-and-comer. And then Gutenberg, who is the dark horse of the tournament, the underdog, the least ranked and the worst odds going into the tournament, and yet has the performance of a lifetime, beating Nicholas Marigali and Lucas Hulk Barboza, two world champions back-to-back, to face Felipe Pena in the final. And Felipe Pena's like, I got this, you know, and he didn't make it look difficult either. So it just goes to show how clinical, how calm, and how precise his jiu-jitsu is.
Yeah, well said. Currently, we haven't updated the rankings yet. Pena, I believe, stands at number 4 pound for pound, but I imagine that will be updated shortly. Our rankings guys are on a trip right now doing something in Puerto Rico. You may have seen that on the Instagram. You can only imagine what they're getting up to down there. But the rankings will be updated. I'm sure Pena will climb a bit higher, if not take the lead spot, if I had to take a guess there.
Yeah, 100%. Felipe Pena, phenomenal athlete, representative, of course, Gracie Barra, and just another huge win for that man. And I'm excited to see him back in the gi, because, you know, he only had one gi match in all of 2020. That was that rather bizarre encounter with Urbeth Santos, where Urbeth taps, as Urbeth does. And prior to that, of course, it was ADCC 2019. And prior to that, it was Worlds 2019.
Wow.
So that's like over a year and a half since we'd seen Preguiça, you know, really compete in the gi. And yeah, just a little reminder of why you should always make an effort to watch him. But anyway, moving on. So we got some quick results from BJJ Stars, right? Chase, you want to run us through what the action was, what went down?
Sure, absolutely. So the highly anticipated sort of debut, you could call it, of heel hooks and IBJJF rules took place at BJJ Stars. We saw a couple of Nogi matches roll us out. Let's talk first, I guess, about Izaki Bahayens versus Roberto Jimenez.
And we got a little highlight video we can roll while we're talking about this.
And everyone's curious, you know, both these guys aren't necessarily known as leg lockers. In fact, they've both lost via heel hook, but how that might influence the match, what we might see. And it did come into play, Hal.
It did. Now, I think the characteristics of this match, it was fast-paced, it was scrappy, as you would expect from both these athletes, but that is the leg lock attack that really, you know, showed, okay, this is how it's going to change things. Now, it was a straight ankle. It wasn't a heel hook. However, Izaki used the leg, passed it over the top, reaped, and that rolling out of bounds with the leg lock attack won him the 2 points, and that won him the match, because that's how he scored. But it was a great match. It was really a lot of action, a lot of energy, and like lots of attacks, lots of wrestling, a lot of guillotine attacks from both guys. I mean, Roberto, we know what he's capable of. We know how exciting he is. But man, I was really impressed. And actually kind of excited to see Izaki back in Nogi competition, because as he reminded everybody shortly after this, don't forget, he is a world champion Nogi, blue, purple, and brown belts. So he's got Nogi chops. We just haven't really seen that much of it, you know, at black belt. Maybe this is the beginning of that.
Yeah, he clearly seemed to have a good time out there. Was feeling the confidence after the match, calling out Gordon Ryan. So I love to see it, and yeah, he's an exciting competitor. His wrestling looked phenomenal. He has great counter wrestling, and of course, a vicious guillotine that he threatened a few different times there.
He's built for it, right?
He's built for it. So congratulations to him. And Roberto Jimenez, man, physically, it's so crazy to watch him swing. He was like 170 just a few months ago. He weighed in over 180 for this match. You could see it. I mean, it was very obvious that he had put on some weight. So
yeah, and the reasoning behind that, in case people are asking, is because who's number one in December when he faced off with Dante Leon? There were a lot of questions about wow, Roberto looked kind of shrunken, he looked like lean. A lot skinnier than usual, but not in a good way. People were remarking about it with concern. And the truth is that Roberto had transitioned to a plant-based diet last year. And of course, that process can have a drastic physical change. And, eventually things will balance out as he dials in his nutrition and he figures out what works for him. And I got to say, he looked a lot fuller. He looked a lot healthier. And I mean, his performance was amazing. He was going toe-to-toe with an extremely tough guy. So, I think maybe, he's maybe stabilized that somewhat and he's kind of maybe at the optimal weight for him.
Well said. Rounding out, I guess, the Nogi super fights that we're going to talk about today, we have Bia Mesquita take on Tamara Ferreira, a rematch. You guys might have seen them go at it at the Gi at BJJ Stars a few months earlier.
Another one with heel hooks.
And again, they came into play here, Hal.
Yeah, let's play it because we can take a look. So, amazing match. Again, very scrappy, really good display of jiu-jitsu from both ladies. Maybe not as aggressive as we expected, given how chippy their first match was. And we know that there was no love lost. It was definitely intense, but they were going out of bounds so much. There was very stop-start encounter, but Bia was the one who really was the more effective with the attacks. And look at this. She sucks that leg back into the inside heel hook from top position, and she forces the roll. She loses the heel hook on the first one. She goes for it again, goes out of bounds, and that was the first time we'd really seen somebody use it. And it's interesting, right? Because we were thinking more about the heel hooks from bottom, but Bia, both her heel hooks attack were from top.
Yeah, well said. And here you can see Bia scored 2 points. Really, in my mind, while the heel hooks were a factor and she's more comfortable there, as you can see her try and rip on another one, Bia's wrestling was what really carried her to the victory here. She really kind of dominated on the feet. Tamara couldn't get inside at all. And when she pulled guard, Bia was also in a better position. I think her Nogi experience, she's, of course, an ADCC champion.
Exactly.
Yeah, it just showed it was very clear in that match.
Yeah, and usually it's the other way around, right? Usually a very accomplished athlete will go against a less experienced athlete in gi, and they will have a clear advantage. And yet you take the gi off and you take somebody who's very, very accomplished and maybe somebody who's very athletic and dynamic, and they actually have a better chance of winning in no gi because of the lack of handles and not being slowed down. It was kind of the other way around. Because Tamara, of course, she's a relatively new black belt. Her real first major conquest as a black belt was 2020 Euros, right at the beginning of 2020.
Which she won.
And of course, Bia has got so many gold medals, take all day to list them, right? But their first match in the gi was very, very close. Now, no-gi, of course, Bia has just so much experience, ADCC champion, world no-gi champion, whereas Tamara, the biggest thing that she's ever done in no-gi is competing at the world championships as a brown belt. And yet, yeah, you're right. Bia just looked another level. There was a stark difference in their approach to that match.
I'm hoping to see a rubber match maybe in the gi, just because that one was so exciting and clearly is a little more in Tamara's wheelhouse, but we'll see what happens next. Tamara looked great. I mean, she didn't win that match, but she's definitely here to stay and a force to be reckoned with.
Contender. I think this is the start of a pretty interesting rivalry.
Bia remains Bia, one of the best ever to do it. And then we have, of course, at BJJ Stars, Leandro Lo, the man everyone's himself. Favorite jiu-jitsu fighter. I think it's fair to say almost, but man, he put on a show, Hal.
As he does. That's Leandro, right? Now, of course, a last-minute change in opponents. So originally scheduled to face Gustavo Batista. Batista, unfortunately, got injured just a couple of days out from the match. Very, very unfortunate. Alex Muniz steps up. A very new black belt, just got promoted last year. A tough task taking on the veteran, one of the greatest to ever do it in Leandro Lo. But he did. He steps up and he lays it on the line. But Leandro, just too good. Just a different level. Gets this really classic knee slide position with the cross collar choke from top, gets the finish, and that's a big win for Leandro, But of course, coming off winning the BJJ Stars middleweight Grand Prix just last year, he's actually looking really good. This is something of a return to form for Leandro.
Yeah, the momentum has definitely swung in his direction. He had in 2019 wasn't quite the year that he would have loved to have. 2020 things turned around, and now starting off 2021 looking great. I mean, that's exciting times. I love to see it. And
what is it? Shanji called Leandro. He said he's like the phoenix of jiu-jitsu. Just when you think that he's crashed and burned, he rises again. It's amazing. So.
Yeah, there's no quit in Leandro, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him back either in a tournament or another super fight, whatever he wants to do. I hope it's
always
not too long from now because he's fun to watch, Hal.
Yeah, he really is. Yeah, Leandro is the man. Everybody loves him. Buchecha was right there to give him a little celebratory beer. And those boys went out after that show for sure. But
good times, I'm sure. Yes.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, moving on. So one thing that we wanted to do here at FloGrappling, of course, it is Black History Month. And representation matters. This is a really important topic, but let's be clear. Nobody here on the FloGrappling team is particularly qualified to talk about this topic. So what we instead decided to do was we invited prominent voices from the Black community to share their experiences and their stories. And the first person to do so is Tim Spriggs. So let's play this video because really nobody can say it better than Tim. Very thoughtful, very eloquent, and really important message to share.
I think that jiu-jitsu has come a long way as far as diversity since I started. I started doing jiu-jitsu in 2006, and one of my earliest memories of like telling my family that I was interested or telling anyone was like, oh, that's that white guy stuff. They thought jiu-jitsu was basically MMA. The only black belts that I really knew about were like black and like well-known were like Master Lloyd and Stephen Hall. Now, of course, I've gotten to know a lot more, but back then that's all we had. I think representation and the diversity in the sport has come a long way. We still have a long way to go. We do have in the Black community a lot of successful competitors, and I'm just talking about people of the African diaspora in the United States. I mean, if we want to be honest, Ted Ade is the father of modern jiu-jitsu, and he's Black. Jacare, who when I first started, a lot of people considered the best. I mean, he did beat a prime Hodger twice. They stand out because they're great, all-time great. If we're talking just influence on the sport, and I think it was great seeing them coming up because these are the best guys. When I started, I went to high school with somebody that did jiu-jitsu too. He referenced Jacare. I immediately Googled him and was like, oh, this is a black dude? Like, he's doing the damn thing. And it was very refreshing to see. And, another great role model would be Master Lloyd, because if we're talking accomplishments, I mean, Master Lloyd is one of the best combat sports coaches ever. I mean, we talk about gi, Nogi, MMA. He's brought up all these guys and they're homegrown. On the competitive scene, you notice, we stand out. If you're going to these tournaments, you're seeing the brothers and sisters out there. A lot of times we're making podiums, and I'm lucky that I came up on the team that I did. And then you see the kids program, and I think about the younger kids that start doing jiu-jitsu. That's good for them to see as well. Over the course of this year, I've gotten to know a lot of African-American members in the jiu-jitsu community, a lot of black belts, and they're like, man, just culturally, not a lot of black people do grappling sports. So I think those are barriers in it, and it's not a part of the culture that we come up in. I've seen a lot of major players in the game, even, the founders, the Gracies, some of their attitudes socially. If someone is interested in jiu-jitsu and they go to one of these academies, the vibe is off, and you get the little microaggressions. I know a lot of people don't like that word, microaggressions, but they're real. A lot of, especially black men, they come into these gyms and they're like, I feel like I'm getting singled out. And I've heard it so many times. There has to be something to this. So when you're in that environment, they don't really feel very comfortable. And then on top of that, there's the stereotype. Black guys are naturally athletic. They're supreme athletes. They're tough. They're super aggressive, which is a lie. Already you have to deal with that, all those microaggressions. And on top of it, if you beat somebody, they're like, oh man, you're really strong. Now that would piss me off. All those things play a role. I think there's a lot of people that represent ideas of inclusivity. Crazy 88 is a prime example. We are a very multicultural gym. Our instructors Korean. Most of our black belts are people of color. There's plenty of academies. I know Devontae Johnson is doing a great job running his school, especially the kids program there is great. And I think there's a lot of people doing great work. With the internet this last year of being shut down, we've built a community inside the community where we can discuss these type of things. Support people that represent the ideals that you have, you just support them. Like they have a seminar or instructional like Alec Baldwin. You support these type of people. So I like action instead of just action, instead of just boycotting and being upset. What we do to foster a better environment is to support those that represent us. And representation matters, man. Like, and one of the things that inspires me to keep pushing and keep putting out content and being a part of the community is like, there've been so many times where I go to events, Masters Worlds last year, this little black boy and his mom and his sister, I think his dad was there too. And like, they're from England. Tim Spriggs, my son loves watching your videos. When I started, I would have loved to have more American black guys in the sport, and then being able to reach out and touch them or like speak with them. I think if we support other people, our people, that's going to help tremendously. When the shutdown first happened, I didn't know that there were so many black people that did jiu-jitsu. And so many of us that were really good and were black belts and were teaching and had been in the game for years. I started just talking to them. We started making chat groups. We started this thing called Legacy Martial Arts Association. Go out there and spread the word, and that's our goal. I wanted us to do like a group seminar where all the prominent black belts, all the prominent teachers, we come together and we like raise money to sponsor some kids to be able to compete and train jiu-jitsu. People are out in the streets demonstrating, they're out there teaching, and they're trying to build up the amount of African-American people that do this sport. I think that teaching something like martial arts, teaching jiu-jitsu to people is one of the best gifts that you can give them. I think the best way to support the community, the best way I can, is to share my art. And I think the most positive thing is just building that network. I mean, we're at home all the time. We can't really go to the gym. We can't really go out, party like that. So it gave us the opportunity to come together.
Great message from Tim Spriggs there. Definitely contribute to that fund if you can. Learn more, and I'm looking forward to hearing more stories from these black athletes and competitors.
For sure. Yeah, very important. Hopefully we should get some more of those kind of videos coming through soon. Okay, so one name that we mentioned earlier was that of Gutenberg Pereira. And, we mentioned him as it was a standout performance. He was one of the finalists at BJJ Stars. And we want to highlight his initial match, his very first match of the tournament in BJJ Stars, as our performance of the week. Now, this is not taken away from anybody else. Of course, a lot of good performances, very particularly that of the champion. But this one match, this one moment shocked everybody, and we want to highlight. Let's roll this tape because there's a lot to talk about. Gutenberg Pereira in the white gi came out as the underdog and went up against Nicholas Marigali, the favorite to win this tournament, and he put it on him, Chase, non-stop, start to finish.
Yeah, in the beginning of the match, we're like, wow, that was interesting. What's Gutenberg have for Nicholas? And the momentum never swung the other direction. And man, he's, like you said, poured it on. The pressure was absolutely incredible. Some near passes. I believe Gutenberg racked up 5 advantages before this match was over. And he just looked like a Gutenberg 2.0, a new man out there.
He really did. He put Marigali in positions that we rarely see him in. Marigali is such an effective guard player. He's got those very, very dangerous attacks from bottom with the De La Riva guard and the triangle, the spider guard. And man, you rarely see people disrespect Marigali's jiu-jitsu in that way. He just went out there and he's like, no, screw your guard, just bulldozed through it, put him in some very compromising positions,
Look at that pressure.
Just like we see here. Never was able to, as you say, score the pass, but racked up so many advantages. And man, I just think that Marigali was just drowning under that pressure, and he was never able to come up for air.
Yeah, well said. I mean, it really did seem like Marigali didn't have an answer for Gutenberg's pressure. And you could see him getting more and more flustered as time went on. Nicholas can be an emotional fighter. Usually that works in his favor, but he just never came up with a solution to Gutenberg's pressure.
Yeah, Gutenberg Pereira, of course, he's a GF black belt from Brazil. Spent the last couple of years living in Toledo, Ohio. Was roommates with Dante Leon for a long time. 2019, moved back to Brazil and has, basically gone back to his roots. He's gone back to the gym, GF Team HQ there in Rio de Janeiro, and it's a hell of a pressure cooker, that gym. It is far from the tourist attractions, far from the distractions that Rio has has to offer, that beautiful lifestyle down there. It's tucked away in the suburbs, the concrete jungle side of the city. It is just like really a brutal environment. It's like right next to the train tracks. You've just got like these big trucks going past all day, belching fumes, and the train and the sun beating down, and those guys just murdering each other in the gym every day, right?
Sounds great.
But that's what happens. You go in there and it's a jungle. That gym is literally a jungle, just full of animals, and they're tearing each other to pieces, and the strong survive. And Gutenberg, I mean, just look at the result, man. He's looked better than ever.
He lived in that gym for several years, right? Coming up as a color belt, and you can see maybe the return to what he knows best has been good for him, because it wasn't just Marigali that he beat. He took out the Hulk as well.
He did. Different match against Hulk, right? The match with Marigali was just start to finish, non-stop pressure. The match with Hulk, a little bit different.
Very
much
calculated.
More strategic. Yeah, 100%. And I think you need to be with Hulk because, you want a match, go head on with Hulk. Well, he's going to meet you there in the middle, right? And that's kind of what happened with the Yuri match, Like, yes. Yuri is a very physical guy, and he went at Hulk, and Hulk knows how to beat guys like that. But you tie Hulk up, and maybe you got a bit of a chance, right?
Yeah, it was great to see Gutenberg flex both sides of his game. With Nicholas Marigali, of course, he was super aggressive, pressure. We saw it there in that highlight. With Hulk, he was very calculated, pulled close guard, and was really able to kind of cook Hulk from bottom, if you will, make him work really hard to break the guard, stand up a few times, use Gutenberg using his size and weight advantage the best he could from bottom.
That beautiful lasso triangle attack as well from bottom, which is amazing for a big guy. But it was the intention was there. He was working nonstop and was able to get the decision. But it takes somebody special like Felipe Pena to crack that puzzle that Gutenberg had, right?
Yeah, and it was fun to watch a different scenario than we expected. We all kind of thought it would be Marigali or Hulk meeting Pena in the final. So it was a great surprise to watch Pena unravel another kind of riddle that Gutenberg presented him. So I'm excited to see what Gutenberg does next. I think it was a great showing to beat two athletes like Marigali and Hulk in his first major black belt tournament of 2021.
His stock has never been higher.
Exactly.
The moon.
So let's get him back ASAP and see what he can do next. Good stuff. And definitely deserving, I would say, of performance of the week.
100%. So, speaking of fights, looking forward to, I believe you're looking forward to a pretty big one coming up this weekend, right?
That's right. It's UFC 258. Gilbert Burns is fighting for the title against Kamaru Usman. And also joining him on the card, none other than the legendary Rodolfo Vieira.
Nice. Now, of course, we're big Durinho fans, right? We love him. He's one of the best representatives of jiu-jitsu in martial arts currently active. And, he's been working towards this UFC title fight for a long time, right? He's been campaigning, he's been picking off the big names, he's been climbing his way up the ladder, and he earned it, He actually had the title fight scheduled, right, and had to pull out because of COVID and stuff. So this is, his chance, and he is just so excited for it. We were lucky to catch up with Durinho and one of his close friends and somebody who gives him a lot of help with his jiu-jitsu, Wagner Hocha, when we were in Miami recently, right, Chase?
Yeah, exactly. And we have a clip here of Wagner describing what makes Durinho such a special athlete and what he brings to the table this weekend at UFC 258 for the title. Let's go ahead and run that, Tyler.
Let's hear it.
A lot to talk about Gilbert. Gilbert's probably the most complete fighter on the UFC roster. He's a guy who's got amazing stand-up, who can knock out anybody in his weight class. He's knocked out a lot of good guys. He's got grappling at the highest level. There's probably one other guy that has the grappling pedigree that Gilbert has, which is Damian Maia, and he just finished Damian Maia in one of his last fights. So, and then his wrestling is at the top of the highest of the levels too, because he's always been a very good jiu-jitsu guy who's focused on his wrestling to, get people on their back and finish them. So, like in his last fight, he took down Tyron Woodley, and that many people have. And, he's just a complete fighter. So he's a special breed. You get a lot of guys in the UFC that are either good at one thing or good at the other. And you get a guy like Gilbert, you see that there's another level to it. He's probably one of the first generations of guys who can go anywhere and anytime and be very, very good in each position.
Yeah, that was a really cool training round to see some really restrained MMA grappling. light strikes, but more like just recognizing opportunities to strike.
So it's a lot about awareness, right? Awareness of the strikes.
And Gilbert was saying that Wagner brings a really unique mindset and approach to training for MMA. Wagner himself, a UFC veteran, a longtime MMA fighter. And yeah, it was just great to see. And we had that whole round, by the way, on FloGrappling if you want to watch how they train and kind of get ready for something like a MMA title fight.
Yeah, we'll be obviously featuring that Durinho content on the site front and center over the next couple of days. We had a great interview with Durinho shortly after the fight was announced, and he really told us about his plans for how he feels that he can win this. He feels very confident because, of course, him and Usman, they trained together. They trained together in Florida, and Usman went elsewhere. He joined Trevor Whitman, I believe it was, to go and train there for this. But it's obviously a lot has happened in the training room that Durinho was aware of, and I guess that is going into his game plan, and he feels that he has a great chance of winning this match by knockout. But he feels that he can wrestle with him, but he also feels that he can submit him many times. So if he was to use a submission, if he was to use jiu-jitsu to win that title for us, I know that I'd be very excited.
Hey, I don't care. I just want him to bring home the belt. Whatever. But also, Rodolfo Vieira is currently 7-0,
right?
And with a lot of submissions there in his record, he's taking on, I think, like you said, Anthony Hernandez, who's currently 7-2. And that fight was actually rescheduled from COVID as well. I think that was supposed to take place maybe 2 months ago or something.
That's right. That's right. I mean, we love watching Rodolfo fight. Of course, he's 7-0, undefeated in MMA. And late last year, shortly before his Who's Number One match, we did a study of Rodolfo Vieira, of his grappling game in MMA so far. Now, 7 matches. 6 wins by submission.
Wow.
1 win was by TKO due to strikes, ground and pound. In those 7 matches, he has spent a grand total of about 8 seconds on his back. Right? The rest of
That's
the time,
something else, yeah.
he just is on top, just destroying people, just bulldozing them, just smashing them, and then, of course, submitting them as well. And he's one of the best and the most efficient exponents of jiu-jitsu in mixed martial arts. So, against Hernandez, who is 7-2, and obviously, an equally experienced fighter. It's interesting to see how this will go. But yeah, always love watching Rodolfo fight. Love watching Durinho fight. Definitely will be tuning into UFC 258 this weekend.
That's on Saturday, February 13th. The main card should kick off around, I think, 9 p.m. Central Time. But double check that on your local listings if they even still make those. But of course, that's not the only event on the horizon. We have some stuff coming up. Fight to Win is back this month with a few different events, Hal.
Yeah, we got a pretty busy lineup over the next couple of weeks. Many Fight to Win super fights coming up. And, of course, don't forget this Who's Number One will be taking place on February 26th. Now, we've had some developments today. We've had some news and some updates. And I cannot, unfortunately, share them with you right now. But what I can tell you is that we're expecting some big announcements over the next couple of days. What does that mean? Well, wait and see. But it's going to affect Fight to Win, and it will affect Who's Number One. But there are some really cool super fights coming up over the next couple of weeks, particularly on the Fight to Win stage. Very excited to see Nogi World Champ versus Nogi World Champ. Dante Leon is scheduled to face off from Manuel Hibamar. Both were gold medalists 2019 IBJJF World Nogi Championships. Dante at middle, Hibamar at middle heavyweight, and they've never faced off, right, Chase?
Yeah, it's a really fun matchup, and both guys know the Fight to Win stage and format very well. They'll know that it's time to put on a show. I expect a lot of action. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, a lot of really fun. Pedro Mourinho is lining them up as well. Of course, the Gracie Barra brown belt, based in Houston, Texas, a studio of Olpiano, Malachias, and Draculino. He is, well known, right, for being one of the most dangerous Nogi athletes. He's not even a black belt yet.
Yeah, no, he's absolutely elite though as far as Nogi grappling goes. Deserves to be up there at the top of the card. I'm sure his black belt's not far off as well, but
it's got to be soon. It's got to be coming soon.
He's
surely
taking on what you might call a veteran in Oliver Taza. Oliver Taza is not that older, but he's been fighting at ADCC in the elite level for a very long time.
Very different game.
Yeah, and brings a great leg lock game, as he's well known for, where Pedro Mourinho is just a guillotine machine.
Yeah.
Do not let that man on your neck, or he's taking your whole head home with
Yikes.
him. But that should be a fun match. I'm looking forward to Pedro's kind of ballistic, really physical style versus Taza's technical prowess. That should be a fun match there.
And speaking of fun matches, I'm not sure how much fun it's going to be for the participants, but for the spectators, a very fun, entertaining, and a potentially explosive match scheduled for the next couple of weeks will be Wagner Hocha up against Yuri Simoes.
That's absolutely crazy. That's a bonkers match.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
Now, number one, Wagner is a gangster. This guy doesn't care. He will face anybody. 200 plus pounds, two-time ADCC champion, IBJJF World Nogi champion Yuri Simoes. Yeah, no problem. Bring it on. That is freaking amazing. Yuri, of course, we talked a lot about this because he competed at BJJ Stars, but that was his first gi tournament in 2.5 years. But in that time, of course, he's been very focused on MMA, and he competed at ADCC. And, the guy has had way more success in terms of ADCC and Nogi competition than he has ever had in the gi. It's not to say that he's bad in the gi, but his results speak for themselves. And, Yuri versus Wagner, I can't see that being a particularly tippy-tap match. It's going to be intense.
It's going to be aggressive. And Yuri will be back in his wheelhouse where he's been training more frequently, which is Nogi, MMA-style grappling. I think Wagner isn't afraid of those collar ties. We might push the limits of a pure jiu-jitsu match here as far as what we might see. But it's going to be great. I'm super excited to see how Wagner deals with Yuri's physicality and size, and how Yuri wants to deal with Wagner's pressure. Wagner puts on a lot of pressure regardless of the weight difference, and it should be a fun match.
Well, indeed, for us at least. Yes.
Maybe not for them.
And then, of course, rounding out February. On February 26th, we have got a huge event. We've got Craig Jones versus Ronaldo Jr. in the main event of Who's Number One, Atos versus the Danaher Death Squad. It's a rivalry between those two teams that has been going on for some time and doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon. The comments recently on Instagram, if you guys have been following that, spicy.
Definitely some heat there, and that is a match which, it's a submission shootout, right? Either Craig gets the angle, gets the legs, and wraps it up, or Ronaldo, maybe he gets that back. He's so explosive, so fast.
Man, somebody asked me this earlier. They were like, does Ronaldo really have a chance against Craig? And I was like, hell yeah, he does. Number one, have you ever seen him compete? The guy is nicknamed the human highlight reel for a reason. He is so explosive, dynamic, and you've trained with the guy. He actually has very, very good technique.
Yes, he's an excellent teacher. I highly recommend, by the way, if you get him for a private or seminar, to do that, because when you watch his match, yes, what you see is physical, athletic, but there's a ton of technique behind it, a lot of purpose behind every movement he makes. And that will transition quite well, I think, into a match against Craig Jones.
It will. Now, of course, Craig is a natural finisher. He's got a crazy high finishing rate when it comes to his submission matches, grappling matches. But I just don't think that Ronaldo would take the match unless he truly felt that he could win it. So I feel like he knows something that we don't. And the Atos guys are very smart as well. This is Andre Galvao's team we're talking about. He is one of the best minds in jiu-jitsu. And, he's not going to put one of his guys into a match and he's just going to roll over and tap, They're going to go out there with a very good game plan, and they're going to know how to go up against somebody like Craig Jones. What that looks like, we'll just have to wait and see. But it's not the only match on the card. There's more to look forward to, too.
Yeah, there's a fantastic card awaiting us. We've got Gabby Garcia is back against Nachieli De Jesus. That's a fantastic match. A bit of a rubber match. They've gone back and forth a few different times. Looking forward to running that one back. Gio Martinez is taking on Junio Ocasio. Andrew Wiltsey from Daisy Fresh fame is on the card, taking on PJ Barge of 10th Planet. That one's kind of maybe the secret match of the night. I feel like
don't sleep on
that one, because it's going to be really, really exciting. A lot of back and forth, I imagine. Jessica Khan is making her Who's Number One debut against Danielle Kelly, and Jacob Couch is the Hillbilly Hammer, better known as, is taking on Elder El Monstro Cruz from Checkmat. All those matches, of course, are going to be so exciting.
And just to let you guys know as well, in case we teased this about how the opening two matches of Who's Number One, Jacob Couch versus Elder Cruz and Jessica Khan versus Danielle Kelly, will be free to watch. You can watch them for free on the FloGrappling Facebook page and YouTube channel. So 3 prelims and highlighting some of the up-and-comers there, giving them a platform to shine upon. And then one more event to round out the month. Fight to Win it back at the end of February in Dallas, and they're going to be doing another all-women's card of submission grappling matches, submission grappling and jiu-jitsu. And headlining that one, we believe, will be Elizabeth Clay returning against Maria Malajasiak. So that's going to be an interesting one. Of course, we're big fans of Liz Clay here at FloGrappling, and she's competed a lot last year, but do not count out Maria Malajasiak because she is, number one, she's very, very tough. Very, very tough. The Polish competitors, you never write those guys off. But she's actually been having some great results in 2020. And, she competed at PANS. She competed in Nogi tournaments in 2019. We saw her in action there. So a very interesting match. And actually picked up a really big win last year as well. She submitted Nachieli to Jesus with a knee bar.
I remember that. Yeah, it's fantastic. Definitely do not sleep on Maria.
Nachieli's one of the best in the world. So you tap out Nachi. That's a big, big win.
100%. So that's going to be a great event and match. That's, like Hal said, going down February 27th, end of the month. And that's a busy weekend.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, busy month, busy weekend. Lots of jiu-jitsu to watch here on FloGrappling. We're going to play you out with this little advert for Who's Number One. And we'll see you here next week on the Grappling Bulletin.
My name is Ronaldo Jr. I'm from Brazil. I train at Atos Jiu-Jitsu in San Diego.
My name is Craig Jones. I train with Renzo Gracie Academy, specifically the Danaher Death Squad.
My style is kind of aggressive. I think it's going to be a very exciting match for the people who love Jiu-Jitsu.
Typically, a lot of people will watch me compete to see the finishes. And in regards to those finishes, mostly heel hooks.
Now is my time. I'm excited.
For sure, it's going to be exciting.